Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. Under the Biden regime, this country is crumbling by the day. What's the issue today, you might ask? 45,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas have gone on strike. This says the nation embraces for inflation spikes and supply chain chaos across the country. Experts are even warning the U.S. faces a $5 billion a day loss over this strike. The International Longshoremen Association, representing workers at 36 ports from Maine to Texas, has made it clear that the strike is not only about wages, but it's about job protection in the face of creeping automation. The strike began early Tuesday morning as the contracts between the ILA and the United States Maritime Alliance expired without a resolution. After giving $175 billion in aid to Ukraine, Joe Biden is now telling Americans they need to donate to the North Carolina Flood Disaster Fund. That's right, go into your own pocket and donate. Biden told suffering Americans in the flood disaster zone, no, there won't be any more resources coming. We've given all we can. So now it's all of a sudden on the American people to fund for themselves and fend for themselves in the wake of natural disaster. Take a listen to Biden tell the American people this with a straight face.
We have rivers that are still rising. The danger is still occurring for a lot of people.
And by the way, as the FEMA can tell you, they had pre-positioned an awful lot of material throughout that area, from the Bend all the way up into Tennessee. And so the idea that we weren't prepared, the question is, no one knew exactly how devastating it would be. We knew it would be significant, and we've got a lot already in place, but there's more. But here's the point. I'm going to be asking the American people to continue to help fund the needs of these people. It's not going to be one hit and it's over. It's going to take a hell of a long time. It's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. But this is the United States of America. We've got to do it.
What a disgrace to call this man a president. To take all this up and what's going on in the world today, our guest is Roger Stone, Republican strategist and longtime advisor to President Trump. He's also the host of the Stone Zone on stonezone.com. Roger, it's great to have you with us today. I mean, what a set on Joe Biden to be asking the American people, after we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, we'll be sending probably close to that to Israel now to fend for themselves in the wake of Iran and Hezbollah. I mean, how does he ask the American people, Roger, with a straight face, when people can't even go into their pocket for $50 for groceries for a week?
You have to wonder at the back of your mind whether he is doing this to purposely undermine Kamala Harris. I think there's a lot of evidence. Watching him on The View last week, he's still quite bitter about being pushed aside. When he's asked why he dropped, he said, my poll numbers were as good as hers. I mean, I really thought I could beat the guy, but some in the party didn't think so. And then he starts looking down. I mean, you can tell he's very unhappy about being pushed aside. I think when he put on the Trump hat and when he posed for pictures with a bunch of kids wearing Trump T-shirts, people said, oh, he's crazy. I don't think he's crazy. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And in the debate, you notice Donald Trump spit out a big truth. He said, you know what? Joe Biden hates her. Notice she didn't respond to that. That's because they don't know what Joe might actually say tomorrow. So I think it's disgraceful, first of all. It was Donald Trump who went to Georgia, where you have the same level of devastation that you have in parts of North Carolina and parts of North Florida. My producer of my show, has got 2.5 feet of water in his home in North Florida. So a lot of people are suffering here. The only food available to him is FEMA food. There is no fresh water other than that distributed by FEMA. I think this is disgraceful. We can ship billions to Ukraine, billions to Israel, billions to Iran, but we can't seem to take care of the American people. It's really disgraceful. And this is secondary because obviously the lives and safety of those many people affected are our first concern. Yeah. The political implications for the upcoming election are really extraordinary when you examine the areas of the state, these states, two of them, Georgia and North Carolina, considered swing states, where the devastation took place.
You're absolutely right. And the truth of the matter is, and I think people realize that Kamala Harris doesn't give a shit about anybody but herself. And you could see the arrogance going down to the border wearing, and I don't care what people buy with their own money. She's been a public servant her whole life, so I guess technically it was our money we gave to her. But I don't care about it. But what kind of standard and precedent does it set when Kamala Harris is down at the border wearing a $60,000 necklace? Like I said, I don't care that she owns it. If she earned the money for it, she deserves to buy it. It's her money. But good to go down to the border where we have the millions and millions of illegals pouring through every day, and they're taking the jobs of American people. They're taking the jobs of citizens of this country who cannot fend for themselves anymore because we have a government that's allowing these people in to overrun entire towns. You look at Springfield, Ohio, that's been overrun by 20,000 Haitian migrants. I want to go back to a point you brought up, and I am 100% on board with you. I think Biden is still bitter because what she did, I mean, I wish Trump would have went on that debate stage against Kamala Harris and looked her right in the eye and said, how the hell did you get on this stage in the first place? And she would have sat there like, because she's always lost as it is, but got on and let the American people realize that the Democrats are the big and the deep state of the Democratic Party is the biggest threat to democracy this nation has ever seen. It's not January 6th. It's Kamala Harris and her cabal who undermined Joe Biden, who received the votes. I don't like Joe Biden. I can't stand the guy, but I hate Kamala even more. But Joe Biden got the votes, Roger. He went through the process. He was elected by his peers, by his voters, to become the nominee for the Democratic Party for 2024. Yet, just months before the election, we have Kamala and the cabal of Nancy Pelosi, that Kamala and Nancy come and take Biden out. Do you think that, after Biden leaves office, he comes out and says, what really happened? I mean, I think he's not all there, but do you think eventually he reveals to us what happened?
Well, who knows? He may reveal it before the election. I mean, slowly, kind of in his lucid moments, people I know in Delaware telling me he's livid about being pushed aside. Look, he got 71% of the vote in the Democratic primaries and caucuses, and 17 million Democrats voted for him in the primaries. Nobody voted for her. Nobody. Yet they harp constantly about protecting democracy. There was no democracy in her selection.
Right.
And then to go back to the hurricane for a moment, because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Of 100 counties in Georgia, about 25 counties are affected, but they are disproportionately red counties, disproportionately Republican counties, with the exception of one county, Buncombe, which is where Asheville is, which is the only Democrat stronghold in the heavily affected area. This is very concerning because look, if your home has been destroyed and literally swept away, you're not receiving a mail-in ballot in the mail. If there are no roads, if the entire area is flooded, there's no electricity. You certainly can't run a voting machine if there is no electricity. There's not even any place to have a polling place. Now, when we had a hurricane in Florida in 2022, that was just before the election as well. And although I'm not particularly a fan of Governor DeSantis, I will admit to you that he did an extraordinary job of using the state's resources and pushing very hard to get everything back to normal very quickly. It's one of his greatest accomplishments. When it comes to insurance rates, well, not so good. But the point here is, I don't see Governor Cooper in Tennessee moving quickly. I don't see the Biden-Harris administration moving quickly to try to restore, any semblance of normal life in these areas. Donald Trump has to get 56,000 votes out of these 25 counties. And I'm not sure how that's going to work. It's very deeply concerning. I'm still convinced that in North Carolina, if we had a normal election with free, fair, honest, transparent vote tabulation, that Trump would win. But this is deeply concerning. I'm waiting for a Georgia analysis to look at the counties there. But this dislocation is really problematic for an election that is only, I guess, now 33 days away.
Yeah, it's coming up, approaching. The other interesting thing, you mentioned county by county, and it makes me think back to New York, Hurricane Sandy, where we lived on Staten Island. Staten Island is the only Republican stronghold in all of New York City. My friend at the time, Michael Grimm, was the congressman, and the trouble he had getting funding for this island because it was a Democrat in a Democrat-run city with a Democrat majority Congress. He had such an uphill battle. And, I fear that these people face the same fate with what's going on. Turning to the election, Hillary Clinton says that we should expect an October surprise. And she's like a witch, Roger. Anytime she speaks, I cringe and I get nervous about what she possibly knows, because it is the Clinton crime family. They do make people disappear. But when I hear her say October surprise, I think in the back of my head, well, we know everything that Donald Trump has done with his life up until getting on a bus and talking with Billy Bush, to his wives, to his family. We know the guy's an open book. His life has been, his tax returns, his everything has been laid out on the table. So I'm not entirely sure there's an October surprise for President Trump, because he walks a fine line as it is. What do you think she meant by that? Do you think it's meant for Kamala?
Well, first of all, in a certain sense, because so much of the country has early voting.
Yeah.
An October surprise is not what it was, back in the 60s, when a last minute development, or even 1980, when the hostage crisis dominated the final weeks of the race between Ronald Reagan and President Jimmy Carter, who, by the way, is 100 years old yesterday. I met President Carter when I was working for Governor, later President Reagan. I must tell you, I think Jimmy Carter was a terrible president, but I think he was a good man. I think he was a good Christian. I think he was a patriotic American. He'd served his country. He was a terrible president. He had terrible policies, but he wasn't a socialist. He wasn't a communist. He wasn't a Marxist. He was an old-fashioned Democrat. He
was just dumb.
Yeah,
I don't think he was malicious.
In over his head, but not a bad man.
Right.
Unlike some of the folks that we're dealing with today.
Right.
I think that the October surprise they may have in mind is a war, a nuclear war, which could happen in one of two places. It could very well happen in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, where the same day that President Trump survived a second assassination attempt on a West Palm Beach golf course, not much media attention to the fact that our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who's about as good on the guitar as he is on statecraft, told NATO that, yes, they could use American-supplied long-range missiles to hit targets deep inside Russia.
Right.
Now, Vladimir Putin, for whom I am no fan, has made it very clear that that's a line in the sand for him. That's Armageddon. That's the beginning of World War III. So maybe that's what they have in mind. Or this morning, there are reports that Iran is preparing an intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. These are the policies of the Harris-Biden administration that has brought us to the brink of war. And who knows, do they use war as an excuse to postpone the election under the War Powers Act? If there's going to be a surprise, I'm afraid that's the surprise, and it could be a very, very deadly one for a lot of people.
Yeah, as you heard me say in the monologue, America seems to be crumbling by the day. I want to take a quick break here. When we return, I want to talk about another issue we're having. Strikers, again, 45,000 of them, ports across the eastern seaboard. This is all under the Biden-Harris administration. We didn't hear about this. We never saw this or anything like that when Trump was in presidency, because Trump would have got on the phone and said, enough is enough, end this crap now, get your deal done, and get back to work. Harris doesn't even know what the hell a longshoreman is, I hate to say. We're taking a quick break here. We're coming right back with Roger Stone. Folks, are you tired of supporting big box stores and multi-billion-dollar corporations that don't support us? Corporations that donate tens of millions of dollars a year to push woke Marxist Dem ideologies? Whether it be Amazon and Jeff Bezos, or Target with their transgender clothing for kids, or even Bud Light going totally woke, enough is enough. Why should we as lovers of this country continue to support these corporations? The answer is we shouldn't. I constantly get people who reach out to me and ask, John, what can we do to save this country? Where can we shop and support American-made brands and conservative ideologies? Well, we now have a solution to stop shopping at these woke companies and stop funding the deep state, and a solution to buy American. This is something we can all do right now to kick the deep state in the teeth and stop funding our enemies and vote with our dollars. We have a parallel economy for around 450 household products. Not only can you cancel woke brands like Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson, you can also cancel the stores that carry them. I need you all to head over to switchwithjohn.com. That's switchwithjohn.com, where you can read all about our movement. We have access to a conservative manufacturer that will replace these brands and the stores you buy them from. It isn't an additional budget item because instead of turning right into Target or left into Walmart, you're going to shop directly online, directly with the manufacturer. Folks, this is a patriot movement that is happening right now before our eyes. Every 47 seconds, a shopper is switching to our online store, and we need you to partner with us, join us, and band together. I just canceled my Amazon Prime subscription because I've truly had enough. So what do you say? It's time to put your money where your heart is? Join us today and help save this nation. Go to switchwithjohn.com. That's switchwithjohn.com to learn how you can join thousands of other patriots and help take this nation back. Switchwithjohn.com. We'll see you there. We're back. We're talking with Roger Stone, Republican strategist and longtime advisor to Donald Trump. Roger, 45,000 longshoremen are on strike the first time since 1977. Under Donald Trump, we didn't hear about this because it didn't happen, Roger. Donald Trump was a leader. He did all he could to mitigate any issue that was coming or any issue that had happened. We now have Kamala Harris. And I said before we went to break, I don't think she knows what a longshoreman even is or what a longshoreman does. I'd love for the question to be asked her so we can hear her cackle and say whatever BS she's going to say. But it's not just Kamala Harris and it's not just Joe Biden. I want everyone to take a listen to the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, on television this week when she was asked what she thinks about what's going on. Just take a listen.
Where have you been kind of focused and hearing on what would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that.
Roger, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is the Secretary of the Commerce Department, Roger. With this strike is going to come great inflation and chaos across the country if it lasts longer than a few days because supply chains are slim as it is. I mean, are we living in an alternative reality here, Roger?
I think so. Yesterday I saw John Catsimatidis on Fox Business, who, owns two different chains of grocery stores as well as a number of other businesses. And he said, look, prices in the grocery stores are going to skyrocket. There'll be no fresh produce. Most of it's coming from offshore. The grocery store business, by the way, has about a 1 or 2% margin as it is.
Slim, yep.
And the prices are going to skyrocket just in time for this election. Look, Donald Trump knows the president of the Longshoremen's Union. They grew up in the same neighborhood in Queens. They had a relationship back in New York before Trump was in politics.
Yep.
If Trump were president today, he wouldn't just call both sides and say, work something out. He would summons both sides to the White House and he'd do the mediation himself. And he would stay in the room until he hammered out a fair deal that was good for everybody. Yep. And my guess is that he would have the trust of both the union and management to do that. Biden is doing nothing. And Harris, as you point out, doesn't know what a longshoreman is. But we're talking about this will affect the country from Maine all the way down to the tip of Florida. I mean, we're talking about stop work and a strike in every major port on the East Coast. The economic devastation, the price is skyrocketing just in time for an election. Again, you have to wonder whether Biden is purposely undermining Kamala Harris.
And it's not just the Longshoremen's Union. It's unions across the country, I think, are tired of the BS and nonsense from these Democrats. I don't know if you heard, but MSNBC went out and did a town hall with union workers in Michigan a few weeks ago, and they were asking, of course, about January 6th. What do you think about January 6th? One guy said, what was January 6th? Was that February 6th? Didn't know what it was. The other guy said, well, I'm not really worried about January 6th. I'm worried about the border and the illegals that are coming through. And the fact that the Teamsters didn't endorse President Trump really pissed me off because the illegals pose a massive threat to the country in itself. But it poses the biggest threat perhaps to the unions, Roger, because it's cheap labor. When you can have illegals come in and do work for half the price, or you can have the union do it for double the price, who are you going to hire as a business owner? At the end of the day, it's the same work getting done. People will argue that it's not. It's the same work getting done. But you have these unions now. Harry Enton on CNN did some polling the other day, and he said the Democrats are performing the worst in a generation with union voters. Why would the Teamsters not come out and say, after doing internal polling, Roger, where it showed over 50-something% supported President Trump? Because Donald Trump is the blue-collar president. He knows what blue-collar is. His father and him built buildings all across New York. Donald Trump, I mean, you can find the videos on every job site for every building that was, ever built. He wasn't the pretty boy CEO who sat in his office and wrote the checks. He did that too, but he was on the job sites. He was with the blue-collar workers. I had family members who worked for his father who Donald Trump was on the job sites as a baby. My great-grandfather held Donald Trump in one of the buildings in Queens as he was on the job site working. I mean, as a child. What is wrong with these unions, Roger? I don't get it.
First of all, I actually, back in the 80s, I visited a couple job sites with Donald Trump when I was working for him. I went to his building over by the UN. It was then just a steel, kind of frame.
Yeah.
He had a policy in the Trump organization that any employee in his construction business, in his real estate business, in any of his business, any employee could get an appointment with him at any time. If they had a complaint, or if they had a better way to do things, or if they had a complaint about the quality of the building material, it was an open door policy. He was a hands-on manager, and he asked the electricians questions. He asked the ward board guys questions. It was really interesting going to a job site with him. Secondarily, I don't think the endorsements matter. So the United Auto Workers in Michigan, they've endorsed Kamala Harris. They understand that the electrical vehicles mandate of the Harris-Biden administration is the end of their jobs.
Idiots.
How many of them do you think are actually going to vote for her?
Yeah.
The answer is not many. So the other piece of brilliance here is Trump's proposal to do away with the tax on tips.
Right.
Now, in Nevada, a swing state, the culinary union, which in Atlantic City they call the Hotel and Restaurant Workers Union, same union, has been the backbone of Harry Reid's Democrat machine in Nevada for years. My sister's a member of the union. And she said, look, the shop stewards, they keep telling us we have to vote for Kamala Harris, but I can just tell you, none of the women I'm working with are voting for Kamala Harris because we make half our income from tips. And we don't want to pay taxes on it. That's a gift. We're not selling something. That's a gift to us for good service. So I think that is a genius move. I think it's going to actually have a huge impact in Nevada. But it's a perfect example of how Trump, even though he's a billionaire, he never lost his roots in Queens. He understands the average person. He understands working class people. He's more comfortable with them. There's nothing pretentious or fake about Trump. He understands the struggle of middle class Americans who are struggling to make it. And it's why I think he's going to get reelected.
Yeah. Obviously the billionaire thing is a big divide from someone who's a middle class voter, but it doesn't mean you don't know what's going on. You can't fault somebody for being a billionaire. That's just what it is. It's the American dream to do that. But at the same time, you can still work both sides and understand what goes on. You had mentioned President Trump is hands-on. I tell everyone as a joke, but it's really true. President Trump is easier to get a hold of than I think a lot of my own friends, calling up through his assistant right away. You get an answer on something. I mean, he's probably the most accessible person I know other than my father. I mean, it's truly insane, but yet you have some of these people on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I probably shouldn't. It's melting my brain. I saw a tweet the other day from Elon Musk going at it with Mark Cuban, and I spoke about this with Mike Lindell the other day as well. And I couldn't figure out what Mark Cuban's deal was because in 2015 he came out and said, Donald Trump running for the White House is refreshing and it's great, I think, for America. And then Mark Cuban has taken this 180-degree turn. And it's went full anti-Trump. And I'm like, what the hell went wrong in this guy's head? And if you watch him on TV, you can see he's not really mentally stable. But I finally figured out what's going on with Mark Cuban. Elon Musk put out a tweet supporting President Trump saying, if Trump doesn't win, this might be our last election. And Mark Cuban responds, Elon, there's going to be a day where you're going to ask President Trump for something because you think it's owed to you for your support for him. And President Trump is going to turn his back on you and say, I don't owe you a damn thing. And Elon, as brilliant as he is, replied, I will never ask President Trump for a thing. That's quid pro quo. So I finally figured out what the deal is with Mark Cuban, but that's across the board. Going on in a later tweet, Elon Musk, Kamala Harris had tweeted out that not one Fortune 100 CEO supports Donald Trump, to which Elon Musk says, I speak to them daily, and if not weekly, and they all support President Trump behind the scenes. Because, Roger, you can't come out and be a CEO of a Fortune 500 or 100 company and support President Trump. I mean, is that the new precedent we have set? Because, obviously this will be the last election, unfortunately, that we see Donald Trump running in it, but we may see one of his sons or someone close to him, hopefully, because I don't want to lose this Republican Party where we have it right now. I mean, do you agree with me? Where President Trump has this Republican Party, I mean, it's the most vibrant, it's the most eccentric I've ever seen it. And I've been into politics since I was probably 6 years old. He's got it at a place, Roger, where you can relate to the average person. When I was growing up, when we had George Bush, and it was old folks, country club politics, right? President Trump has it where kids on college campuses are energized. Women are energized. Hispanics are energized. Blacks are energized. You didn't see that under President Bush. Do you think, and certainly not under McCain, candidate McCain, do you think after Donald Trump, the Republican Party will continue to go in the right direction, or it'll go back to the era of George Bush and the Mitt Romneys and John McCain's?
Well, first of all, I think the issue with Mark Cuban is one of jealousy, to be honest.
Oh, sure.
And we do know that Steve Bannon actually approached him about running for president at one time. I think it's 100% jealousy. Mark Cuban wishes that he was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But as for the party, I think what more importantly, John, there's a realignment going on in the country, a very important realignment. While the Romneys and the McCains, what's left of the family, and the Cheneys, speaking of war criminals, and the Kinzingers are supporting Kamala Harris. You have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard,
Yep.
Rod Blagojevich. You have Democrats supporting Donald Trump. Why? Well, number one, they don't want a nuclear war. They want peace. Number two, they're against the broad censorship on all platforms, on all media that Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris keep calling for, openly calling for. And then lastly, I think this is very important, a new commitment to making America healthier, to health freedom, to cleaning up the crap that they put in our processed foods that slowly is poisoning us. This is a historic realignment. And I think that people don't understand the impact of it yet. So, yes, the Republican Party post-Trump is going to continue to be the party of working people, the party of the middle class, the party of America first. We are no longer the party of Wall Street. That's the Democrats. We're no longer the party of big business. That's the Democrats. We're the party of working people. I hope to see Tulsi Gabbard become a Republican someday.
Yeah.
I think it would be very tough for RFK, given his family heritage. I admire him very much.
Yep.
I disagree with him on a couple issues, but on the big issues, I wish he was a Republican. He thinks more like today's Republican than he does a Democrat. So, yes, I think the party's not going back to being the party of war and the party of spending. I think we're going to continue down this road of being a populist America First Party. Donald Trump's nomination in 2016 was the hostile takeover of the Republican Party from the Bushes.
Yep.
I mean, everybody knew the nominee was going to be Jeb Bush. He was going to pick up the nomination the way you picked up a checked hat, and then he got decimated in the primaries, along with 15 other more experienced politicians. Now, the Trump change in the Republican Party is here to stay.
This is the thing that scares me, Roger. Lou passed away just about 2 months ago. The Lou Dobbs of the worlds, the Roger Stones. You're going to eventually get tired of doing this, Roger, and you're going to want to retire. The Roger Stones, the Lou Dobbs of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, they're not going to be around forever, right? And it's sad for me to say that because you guys have made such a massive impact on all of our lives who are Republicans in doing exactly what I had said, transitioning this party into something it's never been, a party that is relatable for kids, a party that's relatable for 17-year-olds who are going to be going to vote next year for the first time, kids who are in college, making it cool to be a Republican, making it, populist to be a Republican, and follow the ideologies of it. So I'm scared that when Roger Stone decides to go off into the sunset and retire somewhere in the Bahamas, we no longer have Lou Dobbs, God rest his soul. When Tucker Carlson gets tired of doing what he's doing, when Dan Bongino gets tired of doing what he's doing, that the Republican Party is going to revert back to what it was because Adam Kinzinger and Jeff Flake and Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are all waiting in the ballots to come back in and swoop in. So if you tell me you're confident we're not going back, I believe you.
Well, first of all, John, I'm just warming up, so don't worry about me. No, at the grassroots level of the party, at the voter level, there's no support for shipping billions to Ukraine. There's no support for endless war. There's no support for these policies. These people can't win primaries. They can talk. Sure, there's still some rhinos at the upper level of the party, but this is Donald Trump's party now. It's the party of the middle class. And I don't know how things play out post-Trump. In politics, a week is a lifetime. You can't predict what's going to happen in 2 years, never mind 4 years. But these changes are permanent. Once these union members, you brought this up, but once they vote Republican for the first time, well, then they'll have no problem voting Republican again when the stakes are the same and the stark differences are in front of them. So the unions, once a bulwark of the Democrat Party in this country, one of the absolute pillars of their party, they're losing their workers because of their elitist, globalist policies that have ignored the middle class. It's so funny to hear Kamala Harris keep talking about the middle class. Yeah. It's the policies that she and Joe gave us that decimated the middle class.
I got to thank the Democrats for one thing. I can't thank them for much, but I got to thank them for one thing because I think COVID opened up a lot, at least for the generations of like Gen Zs and millennials. I think COVID really opened up the eyes of some of these voters because they saw the tyranny that the Democrats did and that we were all just a laughingstock, Roger. The 6 feet thing was a bunch of bullshit. It was Anthony Fauci woke up that day and said 6 feet sounds like a good idea. I mean, Anthony Fauci, obviously a radical Democrat, writing love notes to Hillary Clinton, telling her how he admires her and all that stuff. So I think COVID, I mean, it was a terrible time. 1 million Americans died. But I think it opened the eyes of a lot of people that we cannot trust this government. And we cannot trust this government, especially when it's controlled by the Democrats. Roger, I want to take one more quick break here. You're also a radio host, so I want to take up something on the other side of this break. George Soros is acquiring 200 radio stations across America, and the FCC Democrats say no problem. I want to talk to you about what he's going to do with those stations when we return. Stay with us. We're talking with Roger Stone. Coming right back.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen-size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
We're back. We're talking with Roger Stone. And before we went to break, I told you Roger also has a great show on WABC Radio in New York on Sundays, Sunday afternoons. Roger, George Soros is buying 200 radio stations across America. What he's going to do with these stations, I don't know, but that's my question to you. Why would George Soros, this non-American Marxist, be buying up 200 Odyssey radio stations across the country?
Well, thank you, John. First of all, anybody anywhere in the country can listen to my Sunday radio show simply by going to wabcradio.com from 3 to 6 o'clock Eastern time every Sunday. And we talk politics, food, and politics. So check it out. Look, people, I think, don't understand the power of terrestrial radio. It still looks very powerful in this country. Yeah. It's also the least censored mode of communications. Talk radio, very important in the rise of Ronald Reagan, in the rise of Donald Trump. And clearly, George Soros recognizes that. So a lot of these stations that he's bought have an entertainment format at this point. Some of them are Spanish language stations. I think most of them are going to be converted to talk, which means they're going to be converted to propaganda and putting out the Democrat line, the left-wing line. The question you have to ask yourself is why is there no conservative magnate? Why is there no wealthy conservative who wants to go out and buy a chain of radio stations? There's certainly plenty of them for sale. But in the break, you basically answered the question, which is who wants to have their taxes audited? Who wants to be harassed by the government? So for George Soros, they fast track his accusations. But for a conservative, I think they would just harass you. It would take you forever to get it approved, and then you'd be a target. But radio is very important. I'm enjoying doing it, yeah. We're now syndicated in Los Angeles, in Detroit, in Chicago, in New Orleans, and so on. It's an important move, which is why they're making it.
You know, you just mentioned that you have fun doing it. Lou loved doing this podcast, primarily because he'd wake up in the morning, call me, and start arguing with me why I wasn't up at 6:30 in the morning. Should have been up at 6:30, not 8:30. I should have been working earlier. I wasn't doing a good job that day. Only at the end of the day to tell me how good of a job I was doing. But every Sunday, Lou would wake up, and it wasn't only in a good mood because he had football on, and him and his wife would watch football together every Sunday. But he loved doing that damn radio show. And you know, before Lou passed, I think he was looking to do even more hours on the radio, you know, different days of the week, as if he didn't have enough. He did a television show 1 hour a day, which takes 2-3 hours to prep before to go through writing and reading your scripts. He did this podcast for an hour and a half each day. On Sundays, he was doing the radio show. Now he was talking about doing, and I'm like, Lou, what is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? And Lou died doing what he loved, and it was working. But radio, he used to tell me, he goes, I love it. He goes, my favorite part of the day on Sunday is that last 20 minutes when the people call in and I get to interact with them. He was a man of the people. He loved talking about it. We mentioned George Soros buying up these radio stations, and I mean, it's true. You know, who wants to be a Republican? I said to you in the break, we're never going to have another billionaire run for president again, Roger, because it's just not worth it. I think these people are going to question themselves, is the country really worth it? You and I would say it because we don't have billions of dollars and we'd put everything on the line to save this country. But now you've got guys like Alex Jones. A settlement against Alex Jones, they're making him sell InfoWars, right? And you see Democrats saying, we're going to buy it, we're going to bid it, we're going to, take over it. Well, that's fine. I mean, you can go ahead and do that, but InfoWars dies with Alex Jones. When Alex Jones goes, you can pay $1 billion for the damn thing. If Alex Jones is in there, it's not worth $1. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I should disclose that I'm working with a group of others to put together an investor group to try to buy the assets of InfoWars out of bankruptcy, so that Media Matters for America, who yesterday seems to have surfaced, doesn't ultimately buy these assets. Now, but I do think you're right that InfoWars can't work without Alex Jones. He is InfoWars. What's really disturbing is in this bankruptcy process, which seems to be very irregular, they're trying to take away his intellectual property. In other words, he can no longer use the words "the Alex Jones Show" on another platform. He can no longer use real Alex Jones on any social media platform. So they're trying to buy his name, which that's un-American. I don't think that's legal.
It's illegal.
But the entire bankruptcy policy here is ridiculous. We have a First Amendment. I don't agree with everything Alex Jones says. He says a lot of things I don't agree with, but I think he has a right to say them and let his listeners decide what they believe. If you go on social media today, even today, you'll find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who say there was no assassination attempt on Donald Trump and Butler in Pennsylvania. This was all a psyop. Nobody was killed. Nobody was wounded.
Roger, and these aren't just any people. These are actually people with a platform. These are people who are on news networks. Isn't that something?
Like for example, Joy Reid. Let's face it, if Joy Reid's IQ was 1 point lower, you'd have to water her like a plant. But I mean, look, she's one of those who said that Trump bit some kind of a capsule and that created this fake blood. This is insanity. And a lot of these people say that Roger Stone orchestrated all of this. Well, using the same standard as that they used on Alex Jones, I mean,
that'll cost her $1.5 billion, Roger.
I mean, I should sue somebody. I'm honestly looking at it because it's ridiculous. And it really is outrageous and disrespectful to Corey Comparatori, the valiant firefighter who died by taking a bullet in the head while trying to shield his wife and his daughter. They say, that nobody really died.
Right.
This is a sick thing that I call assassination deniers is what they are.
Yeah, and for them to deny that, I mean, you could see the video. It's probably still out there on Twitter somewhere of this poor man's lifeless body being dragged out. I mean, the cops surrounding him after having his brains blown out, next to thousands of people. I mean, it's just sick. These people, Roger, won't stop at anything. Alex Jones is a bad guy because he said this. But to your point, you're absolutely right. There's no defamation, Roger, when it comes to the Democrats. When it's against the Republicans, it's not defamation, it's free speech, and you're an opinion-based host. Just like these voting machine companies who came after Lou and Fox News. Lou's an opinion host. Tucker Carlson's an opinion host. Maria Bartiromo's an opinion host. They not have their First Amendment rights to go out and say what they believe or say what they think is going on or report the news? You mentioned the Trump assassination attempt. We find out now through the reporting of the Gateway Pundit, which, by the way, if nobody's reading the Gateway Pundit, I'm not being paid to say this, but I read the Gateway Pundit every single morning because they have all the stories that you're not getting on Politico, on The Hill, on the New York Post, or the Daily Mail. Daily Mail also does a very good job. But the Gateway Pundit reporting now that a man by the name of Jeff Veltri, who's a rabid Trump hater and has been accused of retaliation against conservatives and former members of service members, is now heading the investigation on behalf of the FBI from the Miami field office. Roger, this is the same Miami field office who probably raided your house, the same Miami field office who raided Mar-a-Lago, armed and locked and loaded and ready to maybe kill somebody. He's now heading the investigation of the second Trump assassination attempt. What do you think about that?
I have no confidence that we're going to find out the truth about either one of these assassination attempts from either the Secret Service or the FBI or the Department of Justice. Look, I wrote a book in 2013, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ. And I document in that book how the Secret Service very clearly stood down on Jack Kennedy, making his murder possible. And I think you have the same situation here. This Senate committee preliminary report is shocking. It's so shocking that these mistakes cannot be, incompetence. There's too many of them. It's really disturbing. No, I have no confidence in them. And of course, the House Republicans form a committee. They have authority. They have subpoena authority. But then they don't appoint, people like Eli Crane or Corey Mills, who have experience in this area from their own military service. Corey Mills, an expert marksman himself, but they don't use those committee members. So far, the committee has had nothing to say. They don't seem to have done anything. So I'm afraid this is going to be like the Kennedy assassination, where, more than 60 years later, we still don't have all the facts. We're still not exactly sure what happened. I'm not sure we're ever going to find out what's going to happen. But notice how quickly the FBI closed their investigation and decided that Thomas Matthew Crooks acted alone. He was the only shooter. We're not even sure who killed him. I mean, there's some evidence that he was shot first by a local police officer, and then the Secret Service counter snipers shot and killed him only after he got off 8 shots at President Trump and the people around him. The idea, if you have a shooter with a gun that has been in the sealed perimeter area for at least 27 minutes and had been seen using a rangefinder, nobody told President Trump or his detail. Nobody evacuated him from the site. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And the idea, Roger, we heard after it had happened, that it's the Secret Service's job to be reactive and not proactive. So in other words, take your shot, shoot your shot, and then we'll take your head off. I mean, it made absolutely no sense to me. Then we see the women who were protecting President Trump. One of the women couldn't holster a gun. The other woman guarding for her life. When you take it's just like being a service member. When you sign those papers to deploy or to enlist in the service, you're saying that you'll take a bullet and you're putting your life on the line for this damn country, and it's what makes these people so great. It's the same thing for the Secret Service. When they sign up, they're willing to take a bullet for the president and risk their lives. Meanwhile, you have these people running and ducking for cover. And I love that President Trump is going back now to fight to Butler, Pennsylvania, right where this happened. And hopefully there's no more accidents like that. But, I speak to people on the show who are former NSA people, and they tell me it's going to happen again. This next time it's going to be something on his plane or something on his motorcade. And I mean, we've already seen these missiles reportedly coming through the border from the Middle East. I mean, do you think we'll wrap up with this, Roger? Do you think we're going to see another attempt on Trump before November, or if he wins from November to January?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm praying that we do not,
of course.
But I fear that it is highly likely. One thing I was pleased about, and that was when President Trump said that if he is elected, he will appoint Robert Kennedy to head a blue ribbon commission to study all of these presidential assassinations. So we get to look at the assassination of JFK, of his father, Robert Kennedy Sr., the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan, the truth of which has not ever been told, as well as the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler, as well as in West Palm Beach. At this point, we have to pray. I've not been able to confirm this story that 9 surface-to-air missiles smuggled into the country through over the New Mexico border may be accurate. I haven't been able to find an authoritative source, but yes, I would think that an attack on his plane could be lethal. And then who would investigate that? The National Transportation Safety Board and the FBI? So they'll say, well, this was done by the Iranians. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We just have to pray it doesn't happen. I pray fervently for the protection of Donald Trump, and I urge everybody watching to do the same thing.
It'll wrap up with this. It kind of leaves me unnerving when we hear them come out and say, well, the Iranians are looking to kill Trump. Yeah, well, we had 2 assassination attempts on President Trump, and they were both by Americans, and they both smell very fishy. Like maybe the government did have something to do with it. You don't know. And then you got these people coming out saying, well, Iran's trying to kill him too. Well, that's the perfect cover story. You say Iran killed him, and then you go in Iran and you start a war in Iran. I mean, Roger, it's like we've seen this before, and I'm not saying 9/11, and then we went into Iraq for WMD. The list goes on and on. It's a formula. It's a recipe that the Democrats do. Roger, where can people listen to you on Sunday? How do they get there? How do they watch the Stone Zone, and where do they follow you?
Sure. Well, my daily show, which is at 8:00 Eastern every weekday night, the Stone Zone, is on Rumble. So it's rumble.com/Roger Stone, rumble.com/Roger Stone. On Sundays, WABCradio.com. We are online on 163 countries across the world. You can hear the entire show by going to WABCradio.com. And if you forgot all of that, go to stonezone.com and all of the information is there. John, thanks again so much for having me, and let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. And everyone, I mean, you should listen to Roger every night because, like I said, it's guys like Roger Stone that really helped turn this Republican Party around for what it is. And we should be indebted to these people for the rest of our lives for what the potential it has to turn this damn party around and right this ship that's been wronged for, since, I guess, Ronald Reagan was president. Roger, thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Great to be here.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today. Please be sure to join us back here tomorrow for the Great America Show as our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at John Fawcett NY. That's John Fawcett NY. And on Truth Social at John Fawcett. Shoot me a tweet. Let me know what you want to hear more of on the show. You could also email us at info@ludobs.com. See you back here tomorrow. May God bless you. God bless America. And may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.